actually went to a meeting with Beth Templeton had about rental housing, and he was there, and I remember, and I've told him this before, I remember looking at him, and he said he told me later, he looked at me and we both like, who is this guy? And next thing you know, we were talking about housing, and I saw his heart, his passion for housing people and for helping people in low income, and there was a connection there, but it was still a little weird. I didn't know who he was, and next thing you know, he suggests we go to Columbia and let's learn more. And that's how our friendship evolved, is trips to Columbia. We must have taken 100 of those. And in 3 hours in the car with somebody, you better become friends with them or you're just not going to keep driving.
I met Charlie back in 2006. I, of course, work with Genesis Homes, which does the very same thing that Alan Temple does. And when we formed back in 2006, Charlie's one of the people that I first met and who became a friend and a mentor as a result of that relationship starting back then.
We were living on the other side of Greenville, in a not so good neighborhood, and I woke up one morning after hearing an absurd amount of gunshots and was like, all right, we need to get out of here.
We need to go.
And so I sent my pastor an email. She in turn, through thinking, sent Charlie an email, and he remembered me from the meeting that we had, and from what we had done, and that's how we ended up here.
Charlie and I began talking with each other when Charlie was the owner of his own company, and he was renting to a lot of people who were very low income. And I was trying to learn more about low income housing, and ended up being taught by Charlie that there were people who were business people who needed to make a profit, and they needed and wanted to provide housing for low-income people, and that it was a niche that was needed and somebody needed to do it, and he was choosing to do it, and I think he was one of the good guys.
I had heard so much and met Mr. Warth actually in 1986 when I worked at the Greenville Housing Authority. I think that's 25, 26, 27 years ago. And I can only remember all the good things that they said about him, what type of person he was, and he was a landlord that cared. So when I needed my first apartment, with my first real job at the Housing Authority, I rented from him a couple of years later at 237B Elder Street. I'll never forget that. He gave me a chance. He gave me a chance when nobody else would trust a person who had just gotten a job and had no credit.
I remember he was talking about what Alan Temple did and saying that they'd been thinking about hiring someone new in the future and explaining what their vision for that was, and it would be to do some classes for residents. And he said, first time he ever met me, he said, and so maybe if this works out, that could be you. I just remember thinking, who is this man? He doesn't know me. Well, how can he already be saying this?
The first time I met Charlie, he was, we were talking about the possibility of my doing some consulting and grant writing for him, and I knew it was going to be great because he had on a pair of Birkenstocks and socks.
I kind of knew of him, but I didn't really know him. And someone came to me or called me, I can't remember now, and said that asked me if I knew him. And I said, well, kind of, sort of. And they said, well, he's building all these beautiful homes. I said, oh, all those new houses. And I said, they're for sale. And they said, no, permanent affordable rental. I said, oh my God, somebody's finally figured out that people need, no matter what, everybody can't buy, doesn't want to buy, and never will be able to, but everybody needs a decent place to live. And anyway, long story short, I called him, invited him to lunch, and told him that I heard about his homes and that some of the homes, people weren't actually taking care of them. And I said, give me a shot. Let me show you what I can do.
Alan Temple Corporation has had a tremendous impact on all of the neighborhoods within the city.
Alan Temple is one of those leadership type of firms, I think, in terms of Greenville, in terms of revitalizing, the west side of town.
It's not only the housing, they give you information on a bunch of other programs out there, a lot of family-oriented programs a lot of free or discounted programs. So it's not just the housing that Allen Temple does. They have a lot of programs that you can even go to the center and take classes.
I think it's bringing back a sense of pride to a lot of people in the community who can have a nice house now, and you know, they see their community going from being a little run down to being beautiful, being a place people want to be, and they're bringing part of that back into the community.
He began to realize that he was having an impact on the folks that he worked with, or the folks who rented the Allen Temple houses. He was having an impact on them from the perspective of providing a good, safe dwelling for them to live in. But he wanted more than that. I think he wanted to really have an impact on their lives.
I would define Charlie as passionate, as very committed, and as putting his money where his heart is.
Committed, dedicated, and not yielding. He doesn't give up. He doesn't give up. When Charlie takes on a project or goes after a project, he goes after it with everything that he had. And he puts that gentle spirit out front. And so it's so difficult to tell him no.
I think compassion, leadership, calmness, I'm going to give you 4, and love.
Say compassionate, very visionary, and humble.
Direct, laid back, and personal. Like I said, very personal.
I agree.
Determined, passionate, and perseverance.
I said he is the most giving, caring, sensitive, special person in the world.
Charlie is a very compassionate person. He cares about them. He cares about the neighborhood. He's just a very caring, compassionate, wants the best for everyone.
Good, kind, humble, professional, and on it. When I call him, he is on it.
I mean, I think one of the funniest things is just walking into his office and like seeing the big old adding machine, and you know, he's got a computer, but he prefers to have everything like written down, and you know, use his old flip phone, and I think that's kind of funny.
They're always just talking about what a good man he is. You know, I don't hear a lot of personal comments about it, but you can tell that they are fond of him. You know, they come in and always want to give him a hug.
There isn't a day that goes by that someone doesn't call or stop by to see Charlie. And this goes back to the very beginning when I was here, and I've just been amazed at the connections. People that don't even live in our houses call just to say hello and see how he is. He's been in this community now. A lot of people probably don't know he's from New Jersey.
Has a genuine love and concern for those that he serves.
I said, Mr. Warth builds houses, but you make it a home. And we finally determined that you can't just put people in homes and walk away. You have to give them hope.
What makes Charlie special? We don't have time for that. I mean, he's just a really special guy.
Charlie is a man that has compassion and love for the kind of people he's working with, and I think that drives him every day. He gets to know the people he's serving. He gets involved with their lives. He can tell you about their children, their job situation, their financial situation. He goes door to door. He gets to know the residents. I think that's what's made Allen Temple different.
Instead of just building a house and throwing someone in it and saying, well, good luck, I hope it goes well. You know, everyone in the office knows these residents, especially Charlie, and he's friends with them and he cares about them and he lets them know how much he wants the best for them.
But he's just special. Of all the people that I've ever worked for in my 40-some year work history, there's just no one that compares to him as far as giving, being compassionate, willing to learn. You know, he's still learning, he said, you know.
Charlie is truly concerned about the community and the people that are coming into his houses.
A lot of them have known him for 20 years.
Everybody knows Charlie. Charlie is known throughout the neighborhoods. Part of the relationship building process that Charlie initiated when he took on the leadership role at Allen Temple was walking the neighborhoods.
He knows so many people in the community that's involved in this business, and you know, whether they're private citizens, whether they serve on boards, bankers, contractors, the list goes on.
Well, there'd be some neighborhoods that would still have some unattractive corners. I found it really interesting when the first group of families that were coming into the corner of Dunbar and Calhoun told me that they were excited about what was happening there, because before there had never been anything good that had happened on that corner now, and now we have families there.
I mean, he's just made sure that he's not putting anybody in a situation that's not good for them or that they can't grow into, and he's making sure that he's right there with them but not handing anything out to them at the same time.
There would be at least 53 families that would not be living in as good a dwelling place as they could live if the corporation wanted to play. And Charlie took a fledgling corporation, and built it and continues to grow. He has this vision for this corporation that's like none I've seen before.
It's just played a role in making some of the neighborhoods that are kind of fringe neighborhoods in Greenville part of where people want to be. Then there's new developments as far as housing goes and new businesses and community.
Wow. So it was like truly a new beginning for us. Like, she was in school and I was working 2 jobs and picking the kids up from school and taking them to their classes, and while she did school full time and studied, and then we moved and everything changed.
Charlie puts his heart first. He really loves what he does. He loves the people that he does it for.
I think one of the things I loved about Charlie when I first met him was when he was doing his property management. This was a for-profit business. He saw it as a ministry, and I saw him see it as a ministry. I saw him when people come in and pay their rent, and he knew their name, he knew about their children, he knew where they went to school, he knew how old they were, he knew which ones were bad, which ones were good. He knew all that stuff. He saw it as his ministry. He got in, I say his shoe leather matches his passion. That he really got involved in people's lives before he was in the nonprofit world. And then as a nonprofit, he puts the rest of us to shame. We build houses and ride by and look at them and meet the families maybe once or twice. He's in their house, he's in their living room, and he's always been that way. So passionate from that perspective, I admire that maybe about him as much as anything.
I think Charlie, it goes back to the relationship building. Charlie attends those neighborhood association meetings just about every month, and whether he is presenting a new project or not, he wants to get to know the residents who live in the neighborhood. He wants to get to know the leadership, so that when he does have a project to present, those folks are friends and not individuals that he's meeting for the first time.
I think Charlie started off in an industry that had a lot of pejorative terms at it. If you rent to low-income people, a lot of people label landlords such as that as slumlords, and Charlie showed that you can provide decent housing for low-income people and not be a slumlord, but be a really kind, compassionate, good guy.
Well, I guess there have been a lot of successes, but the one that stands out the most is probably the completion of Randolph Commons off of Eccles Street in the southern side neighborhood. This was a project that the city asked Allen Temple to take on. We had this new idea for a development called a pocket neighborhood, which was a neighborhood within a neighborhood where residents in that specific development got to know one another, but were also part of the greater southern side neighborhood. And this project had challenges from the very beginning. As the property was being graded, an underground spring was discovered. And it took probably about 6 months longer for the development to be finished, but I think in the end it was worth all the challenges. It's a great development. We take folks by that project all the time and point to it as a pilot that has been successful.
It's given me an opportunity to dream, just keep on dreaming, keep on hoping. I'm just amazed.
Charlie has not only influenced the affordable housing arena and helping low-income family arena by his work and his passion and those things. He's actually systematically changed things. He has convinced people to think differently, not just me. And it's changed the system in a lot of ways. It really, I don't know too many people that can say that they've made systematic changes and people's lives changed.
Well, it's made a huge difference. First of all, space.
Safety.
Yeah, safety. I mean, you know,
Energy
we're on a main
efficient.
road. We can pretty much see what's going on. Like everything's energy efficient. Space for my kids. You know, in the house wise, they're able to have their own room as opposed to having to, you know, shack up. And you know, it for us in the house, we do spend a lot of time together, but when we don't want to, it gives us enough personal space as well.
I just think we're doing something really unique, and I don't know of anybody else in the community that has not only the beautiful housing, but has the added component of its spiritual program, it's educational, it's a caring, concerning program, and I've seen him bend over backwards to help families.
I like that it's big. I like that I have my own room. I like that it actually lets you turn up the heat in the shower. The other house, it was kind of cold in the shower.
You know, I consider Charlie and Becky too to be urban pioneers, and I don't know how many folks really think about it that way, but when they moved their residence into Haney Serene, and were basically folks that occupied the first, I guess, market rate house for sale in years and years in Haney Serene, that shows the dedication he's got to revitalizing communities. He provides that rock solid leadership and really puts his whole life out in front as an example. And
Charlie, if you're listening to this right now, I know you hate this part. He doesn't like people talking about him and giving him awards or naming stuff after him. I think he really likes the fact that he knew those people, he knew them well. And individually, life change, that's harder. You know, people can make systematic life change, and that's easier, but he does it one family at a time. I think that's what he's most proud of.
He just, the impact that Charlie personally has made on the lives of people, on my life, it just, you can't even explain it. And when I called the families about coming to his luncheon, it was like, when is it? When? You know, and I told them, and they said, you know, most people are going to either get, if they're in school or working, they're going to get off that day if they can, because they want to come and honor him because they love him just that much. And they know that he feels the same. That's what's so special.
We hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. Well, that's what I heard, that he was a professional man and that he was always well dressed, and he always paid attention to, you know, if there was a repair that needed to be done, he was on it. So I'm grateful again to be in a house, a rental property that he is over, because again, I don't know who would, you know, give me a chance like this.
And I hope some of the children that are in these houses with their parents someday are going to be able to look back and say, because of Mr. Warth and Allen Temple, I graduated from Clark University or wherever, or Clemson or wherever I went, because my mom and dad, or my mom or my grandma, was able to have a decent, affordable place to live and a nice home. You know, these homes are beautiful.
You know, I remember the movie Mr. Holland's Opus, and you remember he wanted to write the symphony his whole life and never got to because he was impacting people's lives. And I said, Charlie, you have lived out that movie. We are his symphony. We're his opus. We're the ones that'll live on past Charlie, and he will live on through us because he's changed our lives. And that to me is the coolest legacy anybody can leave. That to me, he epitomizes that. I told him the other day, I said, Charlie, you're one of the few people in my life that I can say this about, that you've actually changed the way I think in some areas. Because of his passion, because of his intellect, yes. His persuasiveness, yes, but it just makes sense what he's saying. He didn't try to win me over. I just wanted to be on his side because of who he was. And in the process of those trips, you know, I learned how to think differently about some things, and it really made me grow as a person. And we just went, you know, went on the journey together. It was the coolest thing. I hear about teenagers talk about my best friend forever, my BFF. Yeah, that's for teenagers, but Charlie's my best friend forever. He really is, and always will be, even when he's gone. I can't say how much I love him more than I can just say I love him.